In this episode of the Exploring Information Security podcast, from Marine Corps to CISO, Rob Fuller's leadership journey in cybersecurity.
Computers now have primary control of critical functions.
Houston, recommend vector transfer.
Your go for APU shutdown on time.
Roger, go for deploy.
Nice to be in orbit.
Welcome to the Exploring Information Security podcast, where you learn, explore, and grow your security mindset. I'm your host, Timothy D. Black, and in this episode, we'll be exploring the career of Rob Fuller, aka Mubix. With me to do that is Rob. Show notes can be found at exploresec.com/EIS. Feedback for the show, timothy.dblock@exploresec.com. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. You can also rate the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. That helps grow the show. So this is another one of the career podcasts I wanted to do for the ExploreSec podcast. Just an idea that popped up. I've gotten to know Rob very early on in my career because he was gracious enough to come on the podcast to talk about a few different things. He's also one of the more popular people for the podcast because I get a lot of people that tune in. A large part of that is he's done stuff in the past where he did Hack 5. He's been a red teamer, but now he has ditched all that for a tie suit. He's working in a leadership, and as you'll hear, he wants to shoot for a CISO-based role. So the idea for these kind of podcasts is for you to kind of hear where these people came from, how they got to where they are. It's very conversational, like all my other podcasts. So we get into a variety of different things. But this is something I'm very interested in seeing if people are interested in and hearing about other people's careers. If so, I'll try to bring some other people on. Again, I met Rob several years ago and just kind of connected with him, and we would spend 2-3 hours. Well, I don't know how long. We'd spend some time after a podcast talking about a bunch of different stuff, which is one of the genesis of me recording these people like unfiltered, like don't tell them when we're starting, is because I've had some really great conversations with him and other guests as well. I wanted to capture that. So in this one, we kind of dive into his career. Again, this is for people trying to figure out what they want to do, or maybe you are a red teamer and you want to jump into a leadership management role. We talk about that kind of stuff, and so you can kind of see what that would be like, what the path is, what you have to do to kind of get there, and if you want to continue to work up to CISO, I think Rob's got a really good strategy in place for that. So with that, let's go ahead and get into it. What is it? What did you tell me you had to get to? What's the FXBG hackers?
Fredericksburg Hackers. It's a kind of a mini conference every month, meetup where the people in Fredericksburg, Virginia, which is where I'm at, meet up and give talks and share ideas and collaborate.
And this is in person?
Yeah.
That's cool. Gotcha. Yeah. Well, we want to get you out for that. I'm going to leave that in too for a plug. So anyone in the area can certainly get on it. All right. First, very important question. Why Mubix?
Oh, geez. So I've told this story a number of times. It's a really embarrassing story, but I've told it so many times it's not as embarrassing anymore. But I used to play this old game called Ultima Online. I really loved it. It was one of the first MMORPGs. It predated WoW, predated EverQuest, and I really enjoyed it. And then I was in the Marine Corps for a while and didn't have access to the internet because I was over in Okinawa. And I came back and there was this new thing called WoW. There's a new thing called EverQuest 2 or whatever. And the other Marines and other contractors that were on base that I worked with were like, hey, you should totally join this thing. It's a lot of fun. And so I joined. But I don't remember which one it was. I think it was EverQuest. there's like an auto name generator. And so I clicked auto name generator a bunch of times. And it came up with Noob, which was a pretty cool name, I thought. The only problem is, as soon as I joined, I had been so out of touch with anything IT related that I didn't know that the word noob was a thing. So I got told I was a noob. Hey, noob, what's up, noob? Because Noob, it was shortened, right? And so I thought everyone was just friendly in this game. So I was telling all of my people at work, hey, it's really cool that they're all doing this, and like people are giving me stuff, and like just even when I was getting up in levels, like people were still giving me like stuff, and they to my and we were using TeamSpeak at the time, I think it was.
Oh my gosh, TeamSpeak.
and they were cracking up on TeamSpeak because every time someone called me a noob, I was like, oh, this is so great. And so 6 months go by and they are still laughing at this joke with me not knowing anything. And so finally someone clues me in that this is a negative thing, not a positive. And I get really embarrassed, and I go back and I'm going to recreate my account from scratch. And I change the N to an M. I get the Xi to an X. And I search it online just to make sure that this time I'm not picking a word that isn't going to make fun of me. And the interesting thing about this is when I Googled it, the only result for Mubix at the time was a Russian researcher scientist from the 1800s. And so like I'm good. Like there's nothing that I'm going to be made fun of for this thing. Come to find out, it's actually years later, decades later, actually, I found out that Mubix is actually a name in a few African countries that is not super common, but not uncommon either. So I started getting conflicts with usernames with South Africans and North Africa, or like Nigerians and so on. I forget the exact country, but somewhere in Africa, there is this Mubix as a name. So that's kind of where it came from, and a very embarrassing random chance.
I think that's cool, and I think you should have just kept Noob, because if you're getting free stuff, man, like it's you just keep collecting all the free stuff.
After I got older and looked back at that story, absolutely. But as a relatively young person, I was very embarrassed.
Yeah, you don't want to be called a new person. Yeah, now we don't care as much. Well, and you've got one of the more fascinating histories, because I remember, you were on Hack 5 and other stuff, but now you're like, you're in leadership, right? You're at like a senior level leadership. Like, how did you get to where you are today?
So that's struggle mostly. So another story that I have for why I got here, honestly, is I was at the General Electric Red Team. I was a senior Red Teamer there, and the previous boss was moving on, and me and one other individual were kind of up for possibilities of an internal promotion to that spot. And I outright said, no, I'm good. Like, I don't want it. I like being technical. I like being in the weeds. But in the back of my head, I'm thinking, I don't have any leadership experience. Like I'm not ready to be a director of the Red Team yet. And so I get home and I tell my wife about this, because like I'm just telling her what's going on my day and what my next steps are, and like the interesting things that are happening in the team. And she's like, she's my biggest fan, which is so amazing. And my biggest critic also, which is what, marriage is all about. But she says, what do you mean you don't have any leadership experience? What did you do in the Marine Corps? Like, what did you do with Nova Hackers, which is a group we grew all the way to like 900 some odd people. And like, and like, she kept on like listing all of these things that she'd heard me talk about over time, and my stuff was CCDC and so on. And she's like, what do you mean you have no leadership experience? And so like I was beginning to realize that I had what I need for that job, and I was really regretted saying no to it. Like it was a great opportunity at the time, and I wish I had said. And I think that my career in leadership would have started a lot sooner if I had said yes. Now, maybe not. Maybe I mean, who knows? The individual who got the job may have been way more qualified even if I had said yes. And so I don't know. But that was definitely a turning point in my career, because it made me realize that I kind of wanted it to do that leadership thing. And I felt bad about saying no. So that was like an immediate answer in my head that I should probably think about this. And so a couple years later, I'm still doing pen testing, red teaming, and I get on another team where there's an opportunity to move up. Actually, before I get there, I did look at other leadership roles between these two periods and these two stories, but every single time it was you don't have any leadership experience, we're not going to have you. Just like everyone getting into cyber, having having the experience to get the experience is like the catch-22. And that same thing with leadership. You literally have to find a job where you can get promoted into a senior manager or manager level to even start that journey, which really sucks. Because there's no entry level manager positions out there.
Even though they're pretty much all entry level, like, because that's what I say to people is like, managers in a different world. It's just it's a total mindset shift and everything.
Yeah. So actually on that, I just want to touch real quick. One of the things that frustrates me a little bit in this industry is that a lot of people expect their pay to stay the same. Like, let's say they're a principal cybersecurity engineer, and they expect when they go to like a senior manager level, they expect to get the same pay. And it's like, these are two different jobs. Like, you're starting fresh. Like, you should expect your pay to go down, right? You're not, like, yes, you have more experience, but you have more experience in another field, right? So I don't know. I think that there's a lot of expectation that it's a straight line and not two different lines.
Yeah.
But anyways, so I try. Even I applied to Facebook. I tried to like tons of different senior manager positions, and just got no. Get into another opportunity where I'm as a senior red teamer, and I have the opportunity to be a director of the red team, and I apply. And this is one of the most critical pieces of learning that I had in my career. The person who got the job, I didn't get the job. The person who got the job objectively did not have as much experience as I had in the field. They were also a senior red teamer. They also didn't have as much leadership experience, in my opinion. But they got the job, I think, primarily because they had just finished a very, very visible and project that was collaborative. It was very in your face with a bunch of different teams, a bunch of different leaders. So everyone knew this person's name. And I think one of the big things about leadership is visibility. And you don't get, now relationships are really important. Getting the job done and follow through and dependency and collaboration are super important. But I think visibility is probably the most important thing. Because if you're talking about career-wise, obviously getting the job done is the most important thing, and following through and that stuff is super important when it comes to like your day-to-day. But if you ever want to get promoted in leadership, you have to be visible. You have to be seen.
You have to market yourself. That's something that I've struggled with as well too, because I didn't, and that was I had the same fault though. Is like you said, you still need to get the job done, but I've seen people not get the job done and continue to get promoted. Like it's just a different, it's an entirely different environment around the fact that I thought what I did, getting the best out of my team, all should speak for itself. But I wasn't very good at marketing that and showing, like, we were getting, like, the people that worked with us knew it, but it was hard. Like, you really have to, like, almost brag, right? Which
not almost, you have to brag. Like, you have to say, my team is the best. We're doing amazing things. Now, you want to be honest, but you also need to be very, very open with, like, all of the things that your team is doing. Because if you don't brag about your team getting stuff done, or being overworked, if you don't brag about your team being overworked, then you're not going to get more people. If you don't brag about your team accomplishing goals, you're going to be given more things. And I don't know. It's a fine line between, like, overdoing it too and not doing it enough, because I've seen so many organizations just get expected to do a specific task, and the people in it are doing amazing things, and no one ever, like, brags about them. I don't ever see it. And then people, like, demean that team because, like, I don't, like, how do I phrase this? You'll hear plenty of people at an organization say, I don't even know what they do, or
right.
I don't think this team has done anything, where they've accomplished like 17 billion things, but just don't brag about it or don't talk about it. I don't know. It's unfortunate that doing good work isn't enough.
Yes, but that's just I think the management field, and like I said, it's total mind shift around. You have to, and you're absolutely right. It's unfortunate because that's what I thought was, like, as long as I get my job done, get the best out of and I studied, like, management and how to get the most out of my people. So we were getting a ton of work done. We had we had an acquisition where, like, I could show it doubled, and I was one of the few managers that actually had metrics, and I would send them off. And unfortunately, at this organization, they didn't care as much about metrics, or they didn't know what metrics actually meant anything, right? So I didn't. Yeah, I feel like I let that down, but that was definitely a key learning point for me.
Yeah. So one of the other things about leadership, not to shift gears, but one of the mindset shifts that I've had a few of them throughout my career. But one of them actually came out of a book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, I think it's what it's called, and I might be misquoting it, but it's a relatively old book, but it does talk about technology, so it can't be that old. One of the things in there which just blew my mind, and it might be simple. It does sound simple. It does sound, like, obvious, but I really didn't consume it. I didn't, like, put it together until I read this. And what that is as a manager, you are a leader of a team. You are on that team and you're trying to do the best you can for that team. But you're actually part of 2 teams. The first team is obviously and straightforward, the team that you manage. But you're also on the team as an individual contributor of your peer group, of whoever your boss has, and you're on that team as well. And you should fight and work with and for that team, just as if you were on it as an individual contributor on your own team. And that just, like, was huge to me, because I knew that as a leader, as a Marine, I need to fight for my team, right? I need to make sure that my people are safe, that they're doing the best that they can, that they get the training they need, and so on. I never, ever, even until I read this and kind of started putting it into practice, never did the same for my peers, right? Like the other senior manager or the other director or the other VP. I didn't do that until I read this. And, like, once I started thinking about it that way, we had more fun. I had more collaboration with them. We it was automatically more visible because I was laughing and joking with them and telling them about my stuff, and working together to get to a goal. So like if my boss said, hey, we need you guys to get this thing done, I was immediately going, all right, guys, how do we do this together? Instead of I'll do my piece, you do your piece.
Yeah, no, it was the same for me too, because one of the things I had to do, or I did, was set up like just a touch point with each one of my peers that I worked with on a regular basis. Not absolutely everybody, but the people I had to work with on a regular basis, just so we could get alignment and, like you said, like collaborate a lot more. And that's what filled up my week a lot. Like managers complain about meetings, and a lot of that is trying to figure out what the other managers are doing, and they have their different priorities, right? We talk about the fighting between cybersecurity and developers and infrastructure people and systems and other stuff. And you have to build like a relationship with all those people, because even the ones I disagreed with and we could not collaborate properly well, like we agreed to disagree, but I at least had to sit down with that person and we kind of explained it. And while we may have disagreed about how things should be done, you know, we still had a professional relationship. So
I'm going to recommend another book for you, because I'm just now reading this, and apparently this is a really well-known book, so you probably already read it. But another mindset shift for me was when I started reading and I'm continuing to read Surrounded by Idiots by Thomas Erickson.
I have not read that one, but that sounds like me, because we could talk about my fallout for management as well too, which yeah.
So Surrounded by Idiots is just mind-blowing, because one of the things, so the DISC method of identifying people, where you're a red, you're a blue, you're a green, you're a yellow, and it kind of gives the traits for each one. It's just like the other like ENTJ, INTG, or all that. I forget what it's called.
But you said DISC, DISC.
DISC.
Yeah, that's about communication style. Yeah,
communication style. So the DISC method. So Surrounded by Idiots goes into, and this is one of the founders of the red, blue, green method that's based on DISC. It really is cool, because one of the things that it shows you is, like, when you were in high school, you were probably surrounded by the same color. Your friend group was probably the same color, or a set of stripes that have the same color in it. And that's because everyone, when you're growing up, you kind of tend towards the people who communicate the same way you do. And once you get into business, especially in management, you communicate with a lot more people, and you can no longer just say, I'm only going to communicate with reds. And honestly, one of the key things that I just thought of the other day is do I interview and look for just reds? And I was thinking about that the other day, and I'm like, I probably do. I probably have an interview process that I have a really strict interview process. I have 8 questions, and the same 8 questions all the time for red team and otherwise. But like, I probably interview specifically for reds, and I need to modify that to incorporate for everyone. And the cool thing about this book was that it really showed me like what drives the communication style of each one, and I've implemented some of the strategies there and it's been really successful. It's just, I think that leadership, just like cybersecurity, and I know there's cybersecurity leadership and so on, but like, I think that
it's the same thing though. Like I don't think us we're anything special. Like, we do like to think we're special in cybersecurity, but leadership is leadership, because they're dealing with people. But yeah.
I think that the important piece is that you're always learning, right? Like, I have dug into so many books on leadership and so many like podcasts and things on leadership, and starting to figure out what it is. Just getting back to my career though, like, one of the things that was really frustrating for me once I even got into leadership is the expectation there. Now, pay was a different thing. Like, we just talked about that a little bit ago, but the expectations on on like certifications and education is super different too. Like I worked at a company where if you were a director, you had to have your master's, period, end of story. And I'm like, I'm in cybersecurity, I don't have a degree. And so I've gone through, got my bachelor's, got my master's, recently got my MBA. And all of that is because leadership is a different field. It feels like a completely different field, even though I'm still leadership in cybersecurity. It's such a different field. There's different levels to it. So now that I'm a VP, the things I'm looking for, my MBA was one tick box, and CISSP kind of spans all of that, which like seems to be the universal like small tick box, at least in leadership, but also big tick box in the rest of cybersecurity. But I'm looking at the NACD, which is a director's level certification for board membership and so on. I'm also looking at I forget what it's called. There's another certification for board leadership in cybersecurity specifically. And finding those certifications, those degree programs has also been a path for me too, because ultimately what I want to get to is a CISO job. And that's really where I want to get to eventually, but also that's kind of my career end for me. Once I'm a CISO, once I get that role and kind of get a chance to wallow in that hell, which is what most CISOs call it, I'll have the experience for what I believe is to be a good enough place to be a teacher. And just like you were saying earlier before we started, I want to be a teacher. I want to be an adjunct professor or a professor or a high school teacher. And that's where I want to end. But obviously, with what pay is for teachers in the US, that's not something I can do and support my family, especially with kids going through college and so on. But that's kind of my leadership path and where I'm thinking.
So why CISO? Like, why do you want to be a CISO? Because I will tell you, like, I'm good at like management, and like I started studying before I got into management. So, and that's another thing I just want to call out is the you said is continuous learning, right? Reading books, listening to podcasts. Like some people complain, I don't read books, fine, whatever. Like whatever resource it is, you have to study. I think management, especially because there's a lot more. It's a little bit of psychology. And
lots of psychology.
But there's also, I mean, there's a lot. You said old, but it's like Peter Drucker has talked about management for over 100 years, or did, right? He has books from 100 years ago that still are applicable today because we as humans don't change very much. Yes, the technology and other stuff, but at the end of the day, there are certain things that people want from a manager that you can, provide them. But like I thought I wanted to get in management. Like I was one of those few people that was willing to let go of the technical stuff and get into management, and enjoyed it. I did not suffer fools very well. So, which was the feedback I got, which means I didn't get it. Like, and it wasn't even I got along with people great. It's just I was very angry, which was a lesson learned for me. Right? Is getting angry about stuff did not help the situation. But I've never wanted to be a CISO though either. Like I was fine with being a manager until I found out. I feel like that kind of, I knew it would hurt, but I thought, going back to that, I thought getting done what I wanted to do would be just fine as a manager. And it's not, because I would point out stuff and people would still be like, no, we're still going to do it this way. And I'm like, learn that if I want to actually make change, I have to climb the ladder. But I've never had a desire to go up to CISOs. Like what makes you want to go all the way up to the CISO? Because you've already said it too. You said it's what'd you call it? Hell?
Yeah. So the thing about my career is good and bad. I switched jobs a lot. I have switched jobs due to the company being bought. I've switched jobs due to bad leadership. I've switched jobs due to COVID layoffs. I've switched. So I've had a bunch of these experiences throughout my career. And one of the things that I like to do is talk to people. I like to have relationships at the company. I'm very passionate about cybersecurity, and when I find people who are like crazy good at something, I like to talk to them and figure out what they did. And so throughout my career, I've seen solutions to the big problems in cybersecurity. Not mitigations, not patchwork, solutions. And if let's say there's 10 big problems in cybersecurity, I've seen companies that have 2 and 3 well done, 7 and 1 super well done or solved. And I've seen all 10 get solved throughout my career, but never at one company. And I want a chance to pull all 10 together at one company. And that's why I want to be a CISO is I think that's the only level that has the opportunity, not the role, not the permission, but the opportunity to make that happen. And and I've tried motivating from my levels, and it doesn't generally work so well. I've tried influencing at my levels, and I'll get 1 or 2 kind of done. But I think that it's going to need to be a CISO level for me to actually enact all 10.
Yeah,
so that's why I want to be a CISO.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it's a bit of a, to me, it sounds like a challenge type of thing for you. Is how do you get this? Because and that's what I tell people too. Is management is like you people like solving problem with computers, but to me that's ones and zeros at the end of the day, right? It has some level of thing, but when you're talking about people and managing people, everybody's different, and we are the most complicated systems on the planet. And so like that's why I wanted to get into management, because I thought that was some of the that was for me the same thing. Is that like it was more, but it was more about just like managing people, not necessarily building. Like I enjoyed building the programs that I did, and I built several different programs, but I for whatever reason I just never had that next level. So that's interesting that you're like, yeah, when you like you said, you want to set it across an organization.
Yeah, I like, and it's going to be hard for you and probably everyone listening to believe, but I've seen phishing solved. I've seen like endpoint protection solved. I've seen that stuff solved, and it's not specific vendor. It's just it's usually like configurations and so on to get it solved. But like that, I think that if I can prove it out at a company, and this is my grand, like probably way overblown idea of things, but if I can prove it out at a company, I think that I can say, hey, look at this. We could do it here. Now, all of the naysayers that say I can't tell you how many people that I hear, even at my current company and otherwise, say, well, the attackers are going to get in, but we just need one, detection to get them. Like, or why do we need, what's the word? There's so many sayings in cybersecurity. Why do we need to do this? They're going to get in at least once anyways. Let's focus on X. And I really hate that because it's so defeatist. It says there's no possibility of solving this, and absolutes are probably my core pet peeve. I hate absolutes because I think anything's possible.
No, that's very interesting. No, I like it. I agree with you. I do. I'm going to tell you straight up because we're friends. Like, it sounds a little naive as well, too. Like, but I get it as well. I get it as well because I have that same comments of like, I can solve this. And that was frustrating for me, too, that I had to learn is that like, I've had to learn to be like, all right, hey, here's the solution. Yeah. And if people don't want to listen to it, I can't do anything about it because that's definitely what I learned is I can't control people. And like, that is part of it, too, is like doing and I've even done it, right? I've done it, like you said, I've done an example and I'm like, here's a better way to do stuff, and people are like, I want to do it my way, and it's so I totally get it. So
I would agree that it's naive if it was me doing stuff at my home lab and saying, hey, look, this is the solution to all the things. I would agree that it's naive if it's just my ideas on how to do it, but I'll just push back a little bit and say I've seen it work. Like I've seen 1 and 2 or 1 and 5 work at company X, and I saw 2 and 4 work at company Y. So I've seen these things work, and I know they work. And now I just want to put them all together. Like, and they're not my ideas. They're not my well, like 1 or 2 of them are my ideas, but like most of I'm just pulling from amazing innovative experts that I happened to work with at the time. So it's not, I'm definitely not trying to take accountability for these as like I've solved all of cybersecurity myself. I've just seen it solved at places.
Yeah. I look forward to the book in 10 years when you become CISO and you put all these things in place. And I'm not even kidding. And when I say naive, it's just like again, it's dealing with people, and it goes back to like, we can have the right answers, but people are going to take them. It's you know, I've had mentorship podcasts, and I even have one on like how to be a good mentee, because people come to us for advice. You give them advice, and then they go off and don't do it. Right? It's similar to like doctors. I'm sure doctors get very frustrated. Like just put down one cheeseburger and add a salad, and people just still eat the cheeseburger, right? So I just feel
tastes better.
Yeah, they do. I agree. But when you get older, you kind of have to switch to them. Any last thoughts? Like I love that you're taking us on the and so I've talked to someone else already, and it feels like we just talked about management. So I'm hoping to get some other people on that are into management. But to me, I think it's not something that people have really explored. So that's why we were going to do a career panel in May, but I had a tornado decide to come through my neighborhood, so that got canceled. But that's why I was like, maybe I need to do a career podcast, because like I like talking about this management and career stuff, and I just think a lot of people who are listening to this are looking for it, or looking for advice, like on you know, careers and other stuff. So I think these are fascinating conversations. But any kind of last thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, so if you're entry level, if you're getting into cybersecurity for the first time, or trying to get into cybersecurity for the first time, join groups. Like all of the groups, and spend your time at those groups, like Nova Hackers, Fredericksburg Hackers, Dallas Hackers. There's plenty of DEF CON groups. There's like find a local group and lead something. Find a B-sides and lead and volunteer to do something. The more that you talk and volunteer at these places, the more chance you have at getting your career. Even if you have zero experience in cybersecurity, if someone knows your name and they see you on a pile of resumes, there's more chance that they're going to go, oh, let me interview this person. And the biggest thing that I'm having a hard time with, even with the mentees that I have, is over exaggeration of your current skill set, is the nicest way I can say it. Be okay with help desk, even if you have your Sec Plus, even if you have your whatever, even if you have 2 years of experience in cybersecurity magically somewhere. However, if you have your degree, if you have a master's degree in cybersecurity, be okay with doing the help desk job, because any job that gets you in the door, that then puts you to the next level, I promise you it's going to be an easier path than just being super selective on what you apply for. So be super open to any IT job, because I can't tell you how many stories I've heard from other people in the cybersecurity that were like, yeah, I was the sysadmin, and I did the cybersecurity thing, and they're like, oh, you know cybersecurity, and then whoop, you're in the cybersecurity job. And so be open with that. The second thing I would say, with anything, if you're getting into leadership, research what degrees, what certifications, and what books and things that your leaders currently look at, because depending on your organization, you may need or require something that you don't have right now, and it's going to take you some time to get it. Like it took me a while to get my master's degree, and that, like, I was hoping to get the next level up, but there was no way at the current company that I was at the time that I could go to the next level unless I had that degree. And so I started that journey early so that I could be done with it by the time that I wanted the next level up. And so look at what those requirements are, and start early. Like, get your CISB early, even if you don't need it. Like, you have to have 5 years experience minimum, but like, get your stuff early so that you don't have to worry about it later.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. One of the best pieces of advice I got from my manager was like, and this was when I was a net admin at the South Carolina Department of Juvenile Justice. He said to me, because I was this was before they changed GI Bill, but I was like, well, it's going to take me 17 years to get my degree done doing one at a time. But what he told me, he's like, you want to go get it because he's like, you'll hit a glass ceiling if you want to get into management at some point. He's like, you want to have it, and eventually they did change the GI Bill, so I was going and taking 3 classes a week, but like once I got that done, like it definitely, and I will say too, it doesn't have to be in cybersecurity. My degree is in media arts, which is not, it's applicable now because I'm doing security awareness, which is phenomenal. But like at the time, it didn't matter, and it did. Yeah, I didn't have to deal with any of that, requirements when internally they wanted to promote me to management because I already had my degree.
Yeah,
so.
I when I started looking for CISO jobs, I interviewed for a few CISO jobs. And I cannot tell you how many times that I was in the interview and they were like, well, thank you for your time, but it looks like you don't really have any experience in business. So they were looking, and I asked them point blank, are you looking for like an MBA or something like that? And they were like, yes. And like, there was a couple times where they were like, hey, it doesn't look like you have a CISP or any certifications in the management space. Like, okay, I went to get my CISP and got it a day later, right? And it really is all about finding where that glass ceiling is and preparing for it, and knowing what that glass ceiling, where that stopping is with your current resume. And I'm sure you can ask ChatGPT or Gemini or any Claude where that glass ceiling is. Based on your resume, it might give you a good sense of what your next step should be and what you can start preparing.
Well, and I also say what you said too there too is interview, right? Is if you can get in the door from the interview, even if you can't get it, if you get an interview, that gives you an opportunity to learn, like you said, what the requirements are for that job, but then allows you to get a better, it's like practice, right? You have to go in there to get better at interviewing. Like interviewing is a skill within itself. And there are books and a lot of good and bad advice, by the way, on how to actually interview. But that's a topic for another podcast.
If you get an interview, you're 50% there. You should automatically acknowledge that you are 50% there, and you just got to figure out what that last 50% is.
Absolutely. Well, now I want to go back to the first thing you said too, because I love this advice too. It's like is look for blue team jobs as well. Like I put a pen test job out there for a junior position, got 300 resumes in a week. We shut down the posting after a week for me to be able to go through it. And the talent acquisition people were like, we got to shut this down. I could do a blue team. I get like a handful in like 2 months. So, and working in like a security operations center isn't bad experience for someone that wants to get into pen testing, right? Because there's still scripting and queries but then you also learn kind of the basics of networking. And I feel like a lot of pen testers and people studying to become pen testers understand that stuff a lot better than people that actually want to do the security operations stuff, right? And so, and people might get in there. I say blue team's the harder challenge. Yeah. I've done both, and I've done, and it is fun to break some stuff because there's a bit of like, oh, I won, right? But at the end of the day, too, it's like now you got to go fix it, and now you got to go talk to the developers, and that's the challenge of can you get that done? So,
yeah, the nice thing about being a blue teamer is that you learn all the evasion stuff too. So if you actually want to be a red teamer someday, you learn all of the things and where things break for the blue teamers. So, one of the great things is on Windows, audit logs not turned on by default. Even if they have all the audit logs, sent, they're not generally logging X, Y, and Z. So when you start going through that process as a blue teamer, you know what you can do on the red team side to get around stuff and be more valuable as a red teamer too. So I think that almost every job in cyber prepares you well for red teaming.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Cool. Well, Rob, thanks for joining me to discuss pretty much your career and the career advice again.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, man.